Well, praise the Lord and welcome everyone to Unfiltered with Bishop and Lady Smith. We're so glad to have you on this afternoon. It's going to be an exciting segment, but before we begin, let us bow our heads while we go to the throne of grace. Our God and our Father, we thank you this afternoon for your love, for your protection, your care. We thank you for your guidance. God, we thank you for this opportunity that we can be together in this unfiltered session. We thank you for our panelists, our guests who will be joining us on this afternoon. We pray, God, that this discussion will be helpful, that it will be impactful in the life of somebody that's listening to us. We give you the glory. God, we give you the honor. We give you the praise as we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. It's so good to have you joining us. We're going to have a really, really great discussion. If you are on Facebook, please share this on your Facebook page. If you're on YouTube and you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. And let us have a wonderful afternoon as we share in discussion. Lady Smith?
Yes, we are so excited. We are going to be talking today about back to school and facing COVID-19. We've all been affected by this virus from near and far. Worldwide, we've been affected by this virus, but we're going to talk about it now. It's September here and it's back to school time. So joining us today in our discussion, we have Sister Elever Baker, and she's representing our school system. Hello. We also have June Mason, and she's representing our healthcare system. So good to see you. We have Sister Nicky Smith representing our parents segment. And we have all the way from the Bahamas, Dr. Gezel Farrington. I almost said Dr. Gezel Smith, but it's Dr. Gezel Farrington. All the way from the Bahamas, representing our parents as well, too. We want to get a broad view of what's happening, and we're just not going to leave it here. We're going to take it out of country. So if you can, please just take a moment, ladies, and introduce yourself. We'll start with Elever and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon. Praise the Lord, everybody. It's so nice to be here on Unfiltered. Thank you so much for inviting me, Bishop and Lady Smith. As announced, my name is Elever Baker. I am a vice principal with the Toronto District School Board. I've been working with the school board for 14 years and an administrator for 3 years. This is a historic time for education and the world. To be honest, I wouldn't mind just reading about it in the history books and not really being a part of it, but I'm here and I'm here for a purpose. So it's a great honor to be here today to share it with everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Awesome. We're going to go to Sister June, and then we're going to follow that by Sister Nicky, and then by Dr. Farrington.
Hi, good afternoon, Saints. My name is Sister June. I am a clinical nurse educator working in the hospital, and I'm a member of Kingdom Life Ministry, and I'm just glad to be here today.
Awesome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and blessings. My name is Nicky Smith, and I attend Kingdom Life Ministries. Thank you very much, Dr. Bishop Smith and Lady Smith, for inviting me. And I have 3 children, 15, 11, and 5, and it's a pleasure being here this afternoon.
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gezel. They call me Dr. Gezel, but Gezel Farrington. I'm a proud mother of 3 beautiful boys, 14, one is 10, and one is actually 8. I'm here. I'm actually an essential worker that works in the Bahamas. And so I'm excited to be a part of this show with my great friends, obviously, who's just like family to us here in the Bahamas, Bishop Barrington and Lady Corrine. So I'm excited to share with you today.
Thank you so much, ladies. And joining us today as our social media support and guru, we have Sister Cheyenne James. Cheyenne.
Hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be with you guys today.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, since March, as we all know, the introduction of COVID, it has altered the lives of all of us. I mean, not just here in Canada, but in the Bahamas and all across the world. And so we've had to find a new normal, a new way of living in our everyday life, a new way about going about, new way of worship, going to church. Everything has changed. It has also affected our school system because since March, all schools were closed, shut down from all levels up to the university levels. And now we have to deal with how do we reopen our schools safely. Now, this doesn't only affect the students, but it affects the parents, it affects the teachers, it affects the workers at the school, bus drivers, and the list goes on. And so just opening our schools affects everyone. It also affects even people who don't go to school, our grandparents, because things can happen in the school that comes right back into the homes. And so in the last few weeks here in Ontario, it's been reported that the cases of COVID-19 is actually on the rise, right? And in the Bahamas as well, I know for a fact that it is on the rise. And so here we're going back into the school system, but instead of the COVID cases going down, it's going up. And so I'm going to direct my first question to Sister June Mason here to ask her, where do you think we're at today in our fight against this virus? Just before we get into where we're at in our fight.
Well, actually, I think we've come a long way from the beginning, but I believe we're still trying to find our way through this COVID. There's still a lot of unknown things that are out there, and everybody's kind of coming up with their own ideas or their own thoughts as to what will work. But typically, at the end of the day, as long as you practice good hand hygiene, that's the basis of it. But I think we still have a lot to learn. It's a disease that people still haven't put their finger totally on, and they're still learning day by day.
Right, let me jump to the Bahamas. Where is it? Where's the Bahamas at in their fight, Gezel?
Well, I can tell you for the Bahamas, like you said, our cases are rising. Right now, we just got a notification. I think we have about 2,874 cases. And while it may not seem like a lot, when you compare it to the small islands of the Bahamas, that's tremendous. You know, we've had about 67 deaths so far. And, you know, they're trying to beef up a lot of the testing. We've only done about 14,700 tests. So, you know, if you're looking on an island of close to 300,000 to 400,000 people, that's really small in comparison to really knowing exactly what the real impact is.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we're seeing like every day we get another announcement. We have 60 cases one day, then it goes to 90 cases the next, and then it goes back to 75. So it's continuously fluctuating. And so everybody's just trying to be as safe as possible and just really trying to stay at home as much as you can and take care of your family and your kids and not get caught up.
So, Sister Nicky, I'm just going to get everybody chiming here for a bit, and then my wife will take over. But Sister Nicky, how do you see it as a parent with COVID? Have you gotten more relaxed? Do you feel like, you know, it's not as bad as they say it is? How do you feel from your standpoint as a parent?
I wouldn't say I have become relaxed. I think in a broader spectrum, I think we all have become a little bit more relaxed than before, because in the beginning, we still don't know much about the virus. But I think in the beginning, we were more afraid. We were not sure about social distancing or how it's affecting us. But I think now, because we realize, it's just, like, example is just like AIDS. When we heard about AIDS in the beginning, we thought it was like a death sentence. So when we, as a people, when we heard about COVID, we thought it was like a death sentence. But now people are realizing that, you know, the death ratio is pretty low right now. So people realize that, okay, I don't necessarily die from this. So they're taking more risk.
Okay. And my last question is going to go to Sister Elever for now is, I'm going to you from the education section. I think you started back at school, right? And so what you say to us, generally speaking, is what does it look like now, just your first entrance into school, not post-COVID, but
Pre-COVID?
We have COVID with us.
So prior to COVID, schools were open for everyone, parents, visitors, children could just walk through the halls. Now we have a lot more strict policies in place. We are working to keep children cohorted, which means in small groups, and to avoid a lot of intermingling with students. The school itself, the bricks and mortar building has changed. We have one directional flow. We have increased hand hygiene opportunities. Respiratory etiquette is a part of our conversation. There are things that, you know, we always employed, but now we are increasing this to ensure the safety of all students and staff, and also that it swings out to families as they return to school.
Awesome. I'm going to ask Gezel, so what's the situation in the Bahamas? Are children going back to school at this time?
So right now we've started virtual learning. The government has made a decision that they had expected to open school around like the 21st of September. Obviously, we have our challenges with that because they're still trying to test a lot of the environments, still trying to make sure that everybody gets their approvals to open. So we started virtual school. That took place like last week, Monday. So we are actually just about going into 2 weeks into it. We're seeing that at the end of September, they're looking to start integrating kids back into the school systems. We've been getting a lot of correspondence on how they're going to be socially distant and how they're going to manage it. As a parent, obviously, I would obviously be concerned about what's happening and want to make sure that there's safety. But the biggest issue that I'm seeing here in the Bahamas too is, even though we started virtual school, there are a lot of students who really don't have access to be able to get internet or have access to computer systems. So there's a major, major gap as far as learning right now in our economy.
Wow. Sister Nikki, thank you for the picture of Makila going back to school, mask, uniform, and she had on her face shield and so forth. How was that experience the first day of her going back to school, and what's her feedback? We know she's outspoken. What did she have to say about that?
The first day, I think she was ready more than I was. I knew she was going back, but mentally I was not really prepared to send her back. But I wanted her to get that experience too. And I think based on the teachings that I've taught her, even prior to COVID, I know that she would be able to apply that. And as you said, she is a social butterfly, and also and she's very outspoken. So the first day we got there, and they didn't ask me the questions, they asked her. There was someone standing on the outside. So they asked her, do you have a cold? Do you have a fever? Do you have a sore throat? And so a couple more questions. So they asked her. And on the second day, when they got to the third question, she said, I already told you so. I already told you no. And so I had to pull her aside and said to her that, because of COVID, they have to ask you these questions every day. And so she's like, okay. So she went back in the line to the teacher and they asked her the questions and she continued on. There was a certain point that I could go. So I couldn't go beyond a certain point. And she went in, she got sanitized. And I gave her a bottle of sanitizer on her bag. And she told me she's not using mine because there's different stations. Well, she didn't say stations. There's different areas that she had to go to get sanitized. So she walked in, she sanitized. She went to wash her hand, and throughout the day, they have to get sanitized. They wear their mask, etc. By the third day, she said, Mommy, I don't want to wear the mask because no one else is wearing it except the teachers. So I told her, I said, be a leader, not a follower. You make them follow you to wear the mask. But then the next day, she's like, can I not wear it?
Face shield.
So, sorry, the face shield, yes. So she said, can I just wear the mask? So I allowed her just to wear the mask and not the face shield.
Right.
So, I'm old fashioned, and everybody knows me, I'm old fashioned. And, I like the brick mortar school, the traditional way of learning. This virtual thing doesn't really, in my opinion. So I'm going to jump back to you, Sister Elever, and I'm going to say, this virtual learning tool, don't you think we really need to get our children in the brick and mortar environment? What do you think? Is it necessary for children to go back to the traditional learning environment, or virtual can do it for us?
So schools primarily, outside of your teaching and learning, they're also a social institution. So students come to school to be socialized. It is not the primary focus, but it is part of the focus of being in school. So we do lose that aspect of socialization when we are using a virtual platform. Socialization, mind you, looks differently because we do know young people or children socialize or meet people online, and they have those virtual context relationships. Traditional schools also provide that one-on-one, that very personal interrelationship with teachers, which are also essential for learning. So if you are to compare and contrast, it's not the same. However, due to the current context and climate of the world, public education has offered another format in order to provide education across the board. So for children whose families make the decision not to send their children to school, they cannot be denied education. So we have to, as a system, develop something else. Virtual learning is not new. Online learning has been happening for years. There are many young people, or people can speak to the fact that they've taken courses online. The fact that elementary and secondary schools have moved to this as a primary mode of education is the difference. So not the same. Different skill set is learned through virtual school than it is in bricks and mortar. Ideally, we are moving to go back to bricks and mortar traditional school, but we also have to think about the safety of all individuals. We do have educators who cannot be in a school right now due to their own health conditions, and we put them at risk, as we do some children who cannot go into schools. We put them at risk. So it's an opportunity to provide education for everyone.
What about the mental health of this lack of social fellowship or together? What does the school system have in place for students, Elever? And then I'm going to ask Sister June if she's seen something in the hospital where there's more need for that support there as well too.
So it was recognized right away from March through to June that children changed. There was an impact on their mental health from not being in the routine of school. Initially, it was fun, but then it changed into I want to go to school. I want to be with my friends. I want to see my teachers. So we recognized there was an impact, and there is an impact on the mental health. We must, ministry and provincially, through the province, there has been an insurgence of finances and money to support the mental health of all students because of the impact of the change in life. So we do know it. And just part of our planning, I work for the Toronto District School Board, so I'm only speaking to my school board at this time, but in my school, we started off our professional development with our teachers around well-being and mental health. How are we going to support our students as they return to school? What does that look like? Some of the conversations, the lesson planning. So there's a focus on just mental health and well-being as they're returning to this new environment, because school also looks different. They can no longer share a locker. They can't use a locker. They can't be social on the playground with students outside of their class or their grouping. So even still, there is an impact. So we recognize this, and it's being built into the return to school plans.
Sister June, what do you see at the hospital in terms of mental health?
Well, mental health is on the rise within the hospital. So typically where people are able to manage at home, they're finding, especially because we do have an adolescent and children's section within the hospital, I guess the admissions are up quite a bit because they're finding more challenges. These children are finding more challenges because they don't have the outlets that they had before. They don't have the resources. Some of them are at home all the time. They're not able to go out for fear of, possibly catching COVID. So there's a few things going on, but within the hospital itself, they try and manage and keep them entertained and kind of keep them busy and with different projects, different things to do within the hospital, and just hopefully giving them that support system so they're actually able to go back out and still be good.
That's awesome. But, I want to turn to Gezel here, because I mean, we're talking about mental health, but I think it affects the mental health of the parents as well. Just
I hear the other day.
with three boys, what's the impact on your mental health?
Listen to me. I went through this COVID, and I had to really take a step back and really reassess my situation, because when I looked at, okay, I have three boys, they have to be in school from 8 to 3, sitting to this computer all day with 2 breaks, and they have assignments that are due. And obviously, kids, they like to interact. They don't like to be isolated unless they're playing some game or something. So now that they have to sit there all day, every second it's mommy this, daddy that. So it has taken a toll, I will tell you. And I had to really take a step back and reassess, reevaluate. And the key thing for me was reorganize. I had to reorganize my house. I had to reorganize my work schedule. And the thing that I'm recognizing too is that I'm one of the fortunate ones, because in the Bahamas right now, we have a lot of parents who cannot stay at home, who have to actually go to work, and they have to find some means for their kids to access these online portals in order to get an education. So whereas I can have the ability to work from home and work at the office, a lot of parents have to go to work. And so it gives me grave concern as a parent, because who is teaching your children? Who is there supervising your kids? And a lot of persons don't even have the financial means to pay for a babysitter, or to pay for a tutor, or to pay for somebody to be there to physically help them through the process. So it is really, really a major adjustment, not only for me, but a lot of other parents across the Bahamas are going through it, and they're feeling it. The fortunate ones, they're getting through, but the unfortunate ones is the fact that, okay, your kids are now, if you take the risk, growing up themselves online, and you're hoping that they will be at the age where they're responsible enough to do what is needed. And a lot of the younger kids aren't. So it's really, really a challenge here in the Bahamas.
Wow, I can just imagine that, and it affects everyone everywhere. And
Yeah.
if you're on social media, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, you want to throw your comment, throw your questions, please do so. We're gonna go to Cheyenne's right now to hear what our viewers are saying to us.
So we had asked the question about the difference between online learning and going back to the physical school building. And Brother Mitch said it is necessary for kids to go back to school. It is a different kind of learning. He also said um, the lack of socialization with some kids, and that some of them cannot learn the same way by just reading a textbook.
Right.
Bishop Anthony Farrington also said that safety is the paramount in this whole conversation.
Wow. And it is safety. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, safety is what we want about we have to advocate for. Learning, yes, but safety. I'm coming to you, Sister Lee. um,
I had wanted to comment on
uh-huh.
Dr. Farrington, on Dr. Gezel. Dr. Gezel, I hear you as an educator. I hear everything that you're saying, especially around the inequities of where some parents have the opportunities and where some parents don't. Please understand, as I speak on behalf of our represented board, we saw those same challenges here. We had the challenges where in March to June, it was easier because the majority of families were home. Now we're returning to a where more the province is opening and people are returning to work. So those same inequities exist. But there are there's no but to it. There's a working an attempt to support every family either in bricks and mortars or at home due to choice or decision making to support their comfort, their anxiety, because as our nurse said, many families have anxiety. Forget the children, just the parents have anxieties. There are adults and teachers who are dealing with the anxiety of returning to work, being in the building, etc., because of all those things. So I hear what you said, and it is it's an issue. But one thing on the other side is, as a result of COVID, a lot of inequities have been able to be addressed or brought to the forefront. Now we know that the things that we thought everybody had natural access to, it's not the case. So now as a school board, what are we doing to ensure that everybody is on the same playing field? How can we ensure that every family has access to education in a way that's meaningful for them to be able to learn and to be successful? And we recognize that success looks different for every family, and the needs for success look different for every family. So as a result of this, these things have been brought to the forefront, and now we can address them.
We're all parents on this panel here. We're all parents,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I know I can speak for myself. I know you always say we will do almost anything for our children, right? We will sacrifice almost anything for our children to make sure that they get ahead, that they're safe. And so I think it was Anthony Farrington said something about safety is priority or something.
Paramount.
So Sister Nikki, do you feel that your child is safe?
Yes.
You do. And why?
Why is because I
Sister Weaver likes that.
Throw it out the Facebook. Okay. Please throw your comments if you feel your child is safe. Please.
yes, I
Let us
do
know.
believe that she's safe. And well, it's the extra unknown that makes parents unsure as to what's going on. However, I would say, even though I had some reservation in the beginning, etc., and I still do to some point because COVID is still out there, so to
Mhm.
speak. However, I do believe that the we're not sending out our children. We're not sending them out to a school system, to a principal, or to a teacher. For me personally, I have placed her in God's hands, and
Mm.
so I like through this whole time, I have just been teaching her certain things, how to protect herself, care for herself. But above all, I have been covering her. And
Uh-huh.
so, like, besides COVID, she's in God's hands. When she was born, I dedicated her to God because she's just alone to me. And so it doesn't matter if it's there's COVID or anything else, she's in God's hand. And so that's the ultimate thing that makes me be at peace sending her out there. So it's not the teacher, it's not the school, it's not the principal. So I'm sorry, Sister Lever, but
No offense.
but I am not
Oh, no,
sorry.
God. No, that's all right.
But yeah, so it's not like the school she goes, I have
Right.
confidence in those people. Yes, I do, because I wouldn't be sending her there. However, they're still human. So
Yeah.
I cannot be there with her, and I really can't keep her home and cloak her in just in a bubble. But so I have to trust somebody. And am I going to trust a teacher, or am I going to trust the person that I trust in beyond COVID? And so that's it.
I'm glad you said that, because
Yeah,
at the
it's
end of
true.
the day, we are people of faith.
Right.
And sometimes I think we demonstrate a lack of faith in the midst of fear, right? And it's got to be faith over fear. Yes, we believe COVID is there, yes, or we know it's there, but we cannot just live in fear. And so I'm going to jump up to Sister June here, because every year they try to give me the flu shot.
They try. You notice he said try.
And I refuse to take the flu shot. And so, we're getting, and this is a very serious conversation. I hope my doctor is not listening. And so, Sister June, what do you say about, because the flu season is up on us. And from my understanding, and you can clarify if this is not true, the flu can look like COVID-19, or COVID-19 can look like the flu. And so from a health perspective, or the healthcare perspective, how should I be running out to get the flu shot? What should be happening now as our children go to school and as with all this happening?
Well, actually, even from last year, because they believe COVID started somewhere in October, November of last year. So even at that time, they were seeing there weren't too many cases of the flu, but actually, in actual fact, they weren't sure if there was actually a true flu season, because everybody who got sick automatically got tested for COVID, because they weren't sure and they didn't know what COVID really was at that time. So even now, I don't think you should change your practices from what you normally do. If you think that if you're not well, then you make sure you see a doctor. But they've put things into place where if you are mildly sick, there's certain places for you to go. If you're a little sicker, there's some place for you to go. If you're really sick, then they tell you to come to the hospital. But one thing that they're actually finding nowadays is people are staying home longer and becoming more sicker because they're afraid to come to the hospital. But actually, the hospital is one of the safest places to be right now, because they're so stringent on who comes in, where you go, and they limit the flow of traffic even within the hospital, even for those who work in the hospital. So if you're really sick, it's very wise for you to come to the hospital, get the treatment you need, because they make sure once you've gotten that treatment, they're making sure they're sending you out. And if it's something where you're not that sick and they can tell you to stay home and self-isolate, please do that, because it's in your best interest, but also in the best interest of the people that are trying to help you out as well. So there are provisions for it. And even if it's flu season coming up, just make sure that you wash your hands. At the end of the day, hand hygiene is the most important thing to do. I find a lot of people figure if I put on gloves, I'm going to be a bit safer, but that's actually not the case, because if you really pay attention to people with gloves on, they're touching everything under the sun with these gloves on.
Yeah.
And then you go in the store, you touch everything in the store, you touch the carts and things, then you go in your purse, you take out your phone, you're on your phone, you touch your car, you touch your kid's face and all that things. It's easier just to wash your hand than it is to have to try and change your gloves every time something happens. So hand hygiene, far and above anything, just wash your hands and you should be good. Just be mindful of who you're around. Stay in your little bubble if you have to. If someone is sick, stay home. Please stay home. Do not go out. Do not share it around. There's a lot of vulnerable people out there. There's the elderly. There's the kids. I mean, we all have kids, and I'm sure we would be very upset if we knew somebody sent their child to school and our child got sick from doing that. So at the end of the day, if you're not well, stay home. I know it's easier said than done, but it's in the best interest of everyone.
Right.
That's the same message from the school. If you are sick, stay home.
Right.
Stay home. We do have a screening process prior, just to tag onto that. We have a screening process that happens before you come to school, and then you're asked questions when you get to school. But it's a very brief process at the school, but the expectation is that you are being screened before you come to school, and the hand hygiene is the number one principle that we are employing. Wash your hands, keep your hands clean, and don't touch your face and your eyes and your mouth. Those are the things that we are working on to achieve, to ensure that the environment is safe for all children.
Yeah.
I think the gloves is a false sense of
Right.
security,
Yeah.
like you're safe. And I mean, when you don't have the gloves, you're more aware that you need to wash your hands. You have the gloves on, you may think, "Oh, I don't need to wash my hands." But I notice a lot of people are saying, "Go ahead."
But there's also the technique, the proper technique, even to take off the gloves.
Yes.
If you're doing it, because then there's all that contamination before, and then even when you take it off, if you don't take it off, it defeats the whole purpose if you don't know how to take it off properly.
Yes, so of course, typically glove to glove. When you're removing your glove, it's glove to glove. Once you've got one glove on, you take your clean hand and actually put it inside the glove, because that's actually cleaner. And when you're rolling it, please do not dispose of it on the street. There are garbage recycles places. Please
and
put it in the garbage.
Yes.
Same with your mask, because what you're doing is, if there's anything on there, you're spreading it. It's in the air, right? So we have to look after our country. We have to look after where we are. We have to be proud of where we are. Please dispose of your gloves and your mask and anything else, tissues, whatever it is that you think might have something on it, put it in the right place.
All right, we got to get some of our YouTube and Facebook comments right now. Sister Shine, let's bring it back in.
Okay, so back to our previous conversation about sending our kids to school, the advantages and disadvantages. Brother Mitch said that some parents are not up to speed to the way things are and the materials needed to teach kids at home. Bishop Farrington also said the families need additional support. It's tough, especially if the parents has more than one child. Gabrielle Reynolds says that what we all know now is that teachers are underpaid and that they should command a higher salary. Brother Marlon Roden said that as flu season approaches, while also dealing with COVID, what plans are in place should COVID cases continue to rise and there's a second wave? So that's a question that we have.
Wow.
There's a few more comments. There's also Sister Brenda Reed said that the Board of Education do have the many different resources to support parents and students. If you as a parent is not receiving help, you need to contact the principal of your child's school. And a lot of people are saying that they took the flu shot and ended up getting sick with the flu. We have some people saying that they will be taking COVID shot. They'll be the first one, and some saying they're not going for it.
I took it once.
Yeah, you took the flu shot.
I took the flu shot once and thought I was going to lose my life. I've never been so sick before. I tell you.
But we are not advocating against the flu shot.
Take it. That's your choice.
Please do not. I don't want anybody to say Bishop Barrington Smith is promoting
No.
people not to take the flu shot.
Right.
Take your flu shot. Believe your doctor. Don't believe me. Believe
No. Yeah. Can I just say something? Dylan was much smaller, and I just bought him a new coat. I'd never forget this. I just bought him a second coat. You know, with children, they're small. He was like in grade maybe 2 or so. Just bought him a second coat, and went to school, wore it 2 days, and then I got a call from the school to say if I can bring him a replacement coat because a child came to school and was sick, and so happened to throw up all over this new coat that I just bought him. So I left work, stopped at home, picked up a coat and brought it to school for him. When I was there, I was pretty annoyed and saying, oh my gosh, suppose I didn't have a coat and all that stuff. But then I was speaking to the teacher and I said, how comes the parents send the child to school and the child is sick and now this has all happened? And what she said to me changed my thought, and it had to do with our employers. And she said, a lot of parents don't have the time, the sick time, and these extra times for when the children are sick. And it's when the child is sick and the school says, come and get your child, that they get that relief that they can actually pay attention to their sick child. And I don't know if that's what you find even at your level, Sister Elever, but this is my experience where that's what has to take place sometimes. So these children are coming to school sick because parents feel trapped in their jobs to get out, to stay home and look after their children.
So that has been a common issue and a concern prior to COVID.
Now that's changed.
Well, It's changing. Let's say it's changing because I work in an inner city area of Toronto, and we do have a lot of frontline workers. I'm actually in one of the high risk areas of COVID where I work, so y'all need to pray extra hard for me. So we've had that concern, and that has been an issue where children may come to school not well, but we find out it's because a parent is unable to take the time off of work to be home with their child for them to get better. Because we do know one day off makes a difference. If the child can just stay home for one day, usually they can be better and move forward, but these children are coming to school sick. We are anticipating that with COVID, if a child comes to school and develops any form of symptoms that may be similar or COVID-like, and we call home, we are anticipating that we could be still facing the same challenge, but we are hoping that employers will be more sensitive. We do know that it's a provincial issue. This is not just isolated to your child. You know, a lot of times it was, oh, your child is always sick, so you always want to be home. But this is a different outlook on things right now. So we anticipate that we're going to get more support from employers, plus with the provincial government and federal government putting different pressures on employers to be more family oriented and respectful of children and families who may be ill. We may not have this situation as prevalent now because of the pandemic. So this is one of the things that has changed as a result of COVID.
No, I'm going to go down to the Bahamas first, and then we'll come back up to Canada here with this question that Brother Marlon posed, with talking about what plans are in place. And we may not know all the governmental plans, but Brother Marlon was saying as flu season approaches, while also dealing with COVID, what plans are in place should COVID cases continue to rise and there's a second wave. And I know for a fact that the Bahamas had shut down completely, then they reopened, then they shut down. And I was reading somewhere that they're going to be opening back again to tourists, and we're coming in as VIPs, which is vacation in place, which means that you go from the airport to the hotel, and that's where you stay till you come back home. You have to be there for 14 days. So Dr. Gezel, based on Marlon's question, what are you hearing in the Bahamas? Because school hasn't even yet been opened. Are you going to get to being opening? Is there any plans in place? What's the government saying? What is happening down there?
Okay, so first and foremost, we are wide open. Let me just say that. The government made the decision that we were going to open up our airport. So we do have visitors coming in, and we can do inter-island travel as well. So we are open. We did a gradual process of opening. This last Monday, we just opened up restaurants that are able to do drive-through services. Of course, they would have been shut down for a period of time. So we are now at the point where a lot of businesses are open. The government, and if you don't know, we are in the second wave for the Bahamas. So we are actually going through it now. We're seeing where at one point we thought that it was going to taper off, and that was around June coming into July, and then August hit, and then everything started to go haywire. But the actual, I guess, plans are, which exist today, is the fact that the government is really relying on everybody to be socially responsible. So, we understand that there's a balance, a very thin line, because you have to balance the economy. At the same time, you have to balance the health. Because obviously, yes, we can look at the health side of things, but then when you have businesses closed, people aren't working, our unemployment rate has gone up. You have more domestic violence taking place in the homes. Is a whole lot of social issues that come out of it. And so they are looking at the point that we're trying to balance the beam, which we don't know which direction is going to go. The expectations are that, yes, we're going to continue to be socially aware. We're going to continue to ensure that all of our businesses obviously adapt the 6-foot spacing rules, making sure that everybody is wearing masks. Without mask, you cannot enter into any business establishment. So that's one thing that's going to happen. And, even as far as the hospitals are concerned, well, our healthcare system is under arrest. Wow. We are under strange arrest right now. And what they're doing is literally trying to figure out what symptoms you have, where you're at, and tell you stay home until it gets worse. Wow. Because really, they cannot afford to take you in. Our wards are full. We're seeing where even as far as when we talk about the different phases that you will go through. So if you're mildly sick or if you're majorly sick, you will go to different locations. That is now running out. And so they're still trying to find other locations, trying to make sure that they equip those to be able to house individuals who are actually being negatively impacted by this COVID. So there's a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of discussions around how can we move forward living with the condition that we're in. Because we don't foresee it going away right now. So we have to figure out that small balancing act that we have to do in order to keep people employed while at the same time be very health conscious.
So it's how we can live with this virus. That's what we're trying to do, because before they shut it down with less virus, and now with more virus, we've opened back again. And so we just have to figure a way forward. We got to go to Sister June, because I want you to, there's a question that we have for you as well from Facebook. So we're going to ask you that question. But I also want you to chime in and let us know, based on Brother Marlon's question, is there anything in the hospitals are doing to plan for a second wave coming up, that they say is coming up? But Sister Shan can come in with that question.
Okay, yes. So Evangelist June Fort is asking Sister June, what extra caution would you give for someone with underlying health issues like a low white blood cell number?
I would tell them to stay at home as much as possible, because you are at a higher risk, because you don't know, even the simple thing like taking a trip to the store, you don't know what people are coming out with. And I'm finding some people, they are not compliant. So even if you've traveled and people come back, they say quarantine for 14 days. People are like, oh, I have no symptoms, nothing like that. And out they go out to the store, like they're not socially responsible. Right. So if you know that you're compromised, if you know there are issues, the best place for you to be is at home. Stay in your little circle, your little bubble. That's something I do. I'm not compromised, but only certain people can come. If anybody comes, it's kind of like a porch visit. Okay, you stay at the bottom of the step. I'm standing at my door. It's a porch visit, or I'm opening the window and talking to you. I'm actually not, I'm being very careful, because I do have 6 children. Most of them are older, but still you don't want to take the risk, because you don't know where people are coming at. There are asymptomatic people out there as well. Even for myself, I went to work one day and said I had a headache. They sent me home.
Wow.
Something as simple as that. And because they're like, well, we don't know. And I'm like, but I'm fine. This is a headache I have all the time. They said it doesn't matter. One, you need to go get tested, so you stay home. So I literally had to stay home until my test results came back. I knew I didn't have COVID, but it's just a precaution that the hospitals are taking. And even now, even though we're kind of slowly going up in numbers, but within the hospital, there aren't that many cases in the hospital. The hospital is actually, I find it a safe place to be, even to go to work, because they're very vigilant. We do have phases. We've come back down to phase 1, but there is still room for us to go back up. So we're still I find we're still in a kind of hurry up and wait state, and we're still waiting. We're waiting to see if anything else happens. The hospital, a lot of people are still working from home. Where even within the hospital, they limit our movement, our travel. So I might be on one unit. I'm not allowed to go to a unit that I don't work on, even to visit staff, even to visit a friend, even to visit, it might be a family member, somebody there. They're still not allowing that to happen. So they're still being very cautious with regards to that, and making sure that people are socially responsible. Even with regards to visitors, we're only now starting to receive visitors, but it has to be, it's kind of like a 1-hour visit if you're lucky, and you're not allowed to touch the person within the hospital. You can come and talk, you can come and say hi, see how they're doing. You can send items, and even with the items that they send, things are being sanitized before they can even come up to the unit. If somebody comes, they're asking, is this person allowed to come in? So we still have all these precautions in place, just to make sure that things are not coming into the hospital. So that's just how it is with the healthcare system.
Wow. I hope that person asked the question that we answered. So be very careful that you stay at home, stay in your bubble, because that's really, really important. As a pastor, sometimes get concerned. Sister June speaks of social responsibility. Right. And sometimes I get concerned because our church is reopened under the new guidelines, but sometimes even after church, the interaction that you see, sometimes I wonder, because we take our masks off right away and they're not in our bubble, but we have to also be socially responsible at church. Yes, the blood will cover, but we got to remember that there are vulnerable people out there, and somebody may not be vulnerable. For example, they may come to church, but you have somebody at home that they can carry that virus too. So I want to encourage everyone that's listening to us this afternoon that please take the proper precautions. that you need to take to make sure that you protect everyone.
Right. Now it looks like we have another question for Nurse Mason. Yes.
So we have a comment and a question. So the first comment is that there, by Brother Mitch Smith, that there is a lot that is placed on the individual. The government can only do so much, and what they can do is running out. So, and they need to continue to also make money, not just at the way it was at the beginning. Our question is, or there's two of them. Is from actually Missionary Richards. If you're on methotrexate or have sickle cell thalassemia, are you at a greater risk? And also, can you explain the rules about wearing masks in social environments, when to wear it, when not to wear it?
With regards to the disease process, any type of disease process that you have, you are at risk. So you have to be careful no matter where you are, even around your own family members, because if someone in your house is even unwell, that's kind of like, okay, you need to quarantine yourself to kind of keep yourself from catching anything, right? So you have to be careful. It doesn't matter where you are, because everybody thinks it's only when you go out that you might get sick. No, you can actually get sick at home, because if somebody comes into your space, even if your kids are out and about, they go out, they come home, they might be bringing something with them. If you have an elderly person like Sister Elever has, if you have somebody else at home with you who's at risk, you have to be careful at all times. So you just always have to be cognizant of what's around you, who's around you, and what's going on. You have to really pay attention, okay? And sorry, what was the second question?
Was it the second question?
Masks.
Oh, about wearing a mask. Okay. So when you're wearing a mask, a lot of people, that's another false security that people have. If you're being told to wear a mask, please wear the mask and wear it properly. So I see a lot of people out there, they put the mask on and it's like under their nose, right? And or hanging under their chin. What they don't realize is the portal of entry are your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, right? So if your mask is under your nose, that defeats the purpose, because you could still be breathing something in, right? If you put the mask over your nose, make sure it's pinched very well over your nose, make sure it's covering your mouth, okay? I know sometimes people say it's hard for them to breathe and things like that. That's fine. You can take it off for a few seconds, take a few good deep breaths, but make sure you put the mask back on. And make sure it's a well-fitting mask, because I see a lot of people out there, they put the mask on, it doesn't fit well. They kind of twist the ties to put it around their ears, but then you have gaping holes on the side. So that's an entry right there. So you want to limit the amount of portal of entries where this disease can actually come in. So always wear your mask. If your mask gets soiled, if it gets wet, even from you breathing, change your mask, okay? Because it's very important, because bugs like the wet breathing ground. And if your mask is wet, then that's not good. So sometimes for myself, I walk around with 2-3 masks. If I go somewhere and I think my mask is wet or soiled, I'm changing that mask, right? So I find it easier if you're wearing masks that are washable, because then you're able to wash it. And I throw my mask in the dryer, because I believe the heat is what kind of kills anything, if anything's left over after washing it. And just making sure I'm changing my mask whenever I need to. And make sure, even when I'm taking my mask off, don't grab it from the front. Because if you're out there and there's all these bugs on there, I stick my finger in the loophole and I take it off like this. I don't even touch my hand, just my finger in the loophole and remove it. And I make sure I put it down properly. Don't just put it anywhere. People tuck it like, they put it on the table, things like that. No, have a space for it. If you're going to wear it again, some people even put it in like a Ziploc bag, just to keep your surfaces even clean, because you don't know what's on the front of that mask, because you've been out and about, you have no idea. So just be careful even with wearing a mask.
That is so helpful. I'm going to bring Sister Nicky in though. But, we don't really get...
this is good information.
Nobody told us how to wear a mask.
This is really, really good.
They just
really
tell us
good.
that wear a mask. And I'm thinking about...
always have to wear it the right way.
I'm thinking about myself on Sundays. And, when I preach, I sweat a lot, right? So that mask is wet, right? So I have to change the mask 2 or 3 times. Not because I knew I should change it, but because it's uncomfortable when it's wet. But it's good to hear these things.
And a lot of times people say they got it, they don't know how they got it. But some of the things that you're explaining now, we can identify that's how we got it. We didn't take our mask off properly, or we didn't wash it, and so forth. Now, Sister Nicky, we're going to come to you. I was hearing something on CNN, I think it was, or one of the news stations, where this child went to school with one mask and came home with another one. Mighty God, right? Now, firstly,
hold on. I'm holding my head. That is
Now,
Every educator's nightmare. So I'm just gonna just let that go.
right? Now, it's such great responsibility for the teachers to overlook everyone. I totally understand that. And I love what you're saying, which teaching Michaela, your 5-year-old, how to be conscious. And that's just awesome. I really appreciate that. And there's a recess time. What more information are you teaching her to go out there to prepare for recess time, playtime, and the things that happen at school?
I believe it's what you teach them from before. As I said before, it's not based on COVID. I think this should have already been put in place from before COVID, just to handle how to handle herself. And I think one of the main thing is also communicating with your child. Speak with the child to see, the days happening. Make sure that she's not being bullied. Make sure whether by teacher or by a peer, and just not being influenced. You have to train them from before they go to school, or long before things begin, how to wear a mask, stuff like that, and when to keep it on. And it's the whole mindset. And then speak with her to find out the feedback based on school. How was school? What happens during the day? Just the whole process of that, and make sure that she's following the teachings that I have given her, we have taught her. And just she is grounded, and I believe that the teachings that we've taught her, that she's well in that. However, I just teach her the little that I know about COVID. I've been talking to her about that, and she knows that. I mean, Pastor can attest to that. I saw him once, and Michaela is, as you all know, a social butterfly, and she loves to hug. She just loves to hug. And so that was one of my greatest fear or concerns. So the whole from March, from this thing started, I've been talking to her, don't hug. Someone came here and they touched her, and she's like, don't touch me. And they're like, why? And she's like, don't you know about the virus? And they're like, yes, but are you sick? And she's like, no. And I felt so bad, but then, it's how I've been teaching her, and I had to sort of explain, but I was glad that she reacted that way. I saw Pastor one day, and she sees Pastor and she just takes off. And so I saw him one day, and he said, hi, Michaela. And she's like, hi. And I felt like, I'm like, wow. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, even Pastor that, whether I'm there or not, she takes off to him. At least this thing is like resonated in her that, what, there's really a virus out there. So everyone she talks to at school, there was someone, the teacher told me, and she told me herself too, that there was someone that came up while they were outside, and they came up like this in my face, and I'm like, get off, you're in my social space. And I'm like, you did? And she's like, yes. So it's what you teach them from home that they actually will implement.
That is awesome. And the wearing of mask, and see, so my partner have a mask on. I guess she needs some instructions. So how to take it off. It's I would assume, Sister Nicky, that you're also teaching her about the mask and how to wear that mask and not to
Yes.
borrow mask or share her mask.
Yes.
Because
I can actually say that even before COVID, she went to school, and the teacher called me, and she's like, we couldn't find her gloves to give her to go outside to play, and it was cold. And they came and they got her gloves, and they were trying to put it on, and she's like, no, it's not mine. No. And she was adamant she wasn't going to put it on. So I'm not concerned with the mask, whether she will wear someone. I definitely know she won't do that. Her dad came and tried to give her. She's like, no, daddy, that's not mine. So she knows what's hers, and she's very good at that. So I thank God for that.
So just around some of the protocols that are in place at school around the mask wearing and outside for recess, I know Lady Smith asked about that. What we're doing is, so when children are going outside, they are only allowed to be in with their own classmates. So we're keeping students in small groups, no intermingling, keeping them in their own groups. When they're outside and they're able to keep the distance, they are allowed to remove their mask to allow to breathe the fresh air. Their masks must be kept on person, in a bag, in a fanny pack, or their knapsack or something like that, because we know that it needs to be kept separate. Most schools are also providing masks for students. If they have to replace their mask, or if they come to school without a mask, they are given one of the level 1 or level 2 masks to have on their person to wear while they are at school. So respiratory etiquette, mask wearing are some of the things that we are teaching also, in line with, I know what's coming up right now, with Lady Smith and her mask. Those are some of the things that we are teaching, but it's good to know what's happening in the schools, but this is an excellent forum for others to also know. And then they can then educate their children before they send them off to school, or even if you're just going for a walk or outside, you need to have the right etiquette.
So,
And
Sister,
Pastor, sorry, if I might add to, for the younger children, there are these things I don't have to show that I don't have one to show that you can actually put. It's like the glasses, how they have the attachment. So when you're wearing your glasses, you can when you take it off, it just hangs on you. So it's like a lanyard. So when they take the mask off their face, they don't have to put it down. It's still attached to them. So I would also encourage parents with younger children to invest in those, so they don't have to take it off and put it down on the surface.
Thank you, Sister Nikki, for that. Sister June, are you gonna show us something here? Demonstrate how
Yes.
how we do this. Go ahead.
Yes, so I can actually show you. So I actually have two masks right now, okay? So one is a larger mask and one is actually my size, okay? So when you're putting on a mask, make sure your mask is actually on. So because I know this mask is too big for me, so like you can see there's gaping at the sides here. If I'm wearing my mask like this defeats the purpose. If I'm hanging my mask like this and walking around, that defeats the purpose as well. And also what some people do is they keep it around their ears and they put it under here. But this allows bacteria to actually go in on the sides of the mask, and then you're pulling it up over your face, okay? So if I'm putting on a mask like this, because I wear glasses, I actually have to tuck it underneath my glasses and make sure that if I'm breathing, I shouldn't be fogging up my glasses. If I'm fogging up, that means it's not a good fit, okay? So if
Thank
I'm
you
putting
for
on
that.
a mask that actually belongs for my face, okay? So I'm gonna put it on, make sure it's over my ears, okay? Tucking it under my glasses again. So from my nose to my chin is fully covered, okay? You have to make sure the mask is comfortable as well. But then also if you look at the sides, there's no hole, there's no space, and I can't really put my fingers in there. So that kind of makes it good for wearing your mask, okay? When you're removing, do not grab it like this. This is not good. I stick my finger in the side and I unloop it, and I unloop it this way.
Beautiful.
Okay? Because this keeps my hands clean, it keeps my mask clean. And if I have to put it away, I'm folding it together like this. Okay. What some people do, they'll just bunch it up and put it away. But the inside that actually goes near your face, put it together. That keeps the mask clean. If you're putting it into a plastic bag, you're putting it in like this, and make sure you do hand hygiene. So even before you touch your mask, wash your hands, because you don't know where your hands have been. You don't know if they're clean or not. Remove your mask, put it away properly, and then wash your hands again. So that's a process that people fail to realize is you have to wash your hands before and after anything that you do when it comes to COVID. Even if you're going out, the first thing you do when you come home, you should always wash your hands before you do anything else. Because once you start touching things in your house, you don't know what you're bringing in.
Oh.
So just make sure that you remove your mask properly.
Wow, thank you so much for that demonstration. We're learning so much from you all.
Definitely.
Time is almost finished, but I want to go back to Dr. Gezel. I didn't want to go around quickly, but Dr.
Yeah.
Gezel, what are the challenges that your boys face? What do you see quickly? What are their challenges that you have to deal with that they're facing now under schooling under COVID-19?
Well, like I said, my kids are now doing virtual, and the biggest challenge is keeping focus.
Okay.
Because you have to actually sit at these computers all day and listen. There's no interaction pretty much as far as social interaction. So they're just seeing their colleagues or their fellow kids on the stream. And so just keeping them focused. So every second they want to move, they want to eat every second. They expect to be cooking 24 hours a day, and that is a real challenge, because we know once they're in school, the discipline is there. And especially for my younger ones, my older one is not so much the issue, but the younger one is just really being there, sitting down all day, listening to somebody talk to you. And I think that is the biggest thing, because you have to find ways to pique their interest, to keep them engaged and to keep them really focused, because in a split second, if the door opens, they switch. There's something else that's going on in the room, they switch. And so that has been the biggest challenge. And so, it's just really talking to them, saying, listen, this is a new way. I have to promise a lot of things, that I have to deliver at the end of the week. But at the end of the day, we try to get them to stay focused. And then the thing is, they have these things where they think that at every time a class is over, there should be a break. And not normally how it works. So, the minute the teacher says, okay, so go and do your assignment. Okay, break time. Let's go inside. No, it's all about staying focused. And that has been the biggest challenge for them.
Wow, that break time sounds like your husband, Anthony. You always want that break time. But can we hear it, Sister Nikki, quickly, because our time is pretty much done. What's your challenge? What challenges are you having right now with going back to school?
I think the challenge is the one-on-one. She just not being able to have that person-to-person contact that she would normally have. I think that's the main thing. And she has especially one friend that she'd always be playing with, and that parent has decided not to send her son back to school. And so it's like if Michaela is going out, she can't be with him. So it's like, why can't I play with him? So even though she understands about the virus, it's still like, why can't I? So just the person to person contact at school, they'd have toys to play with. She has to play with her own, stuff like that. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Right.
Wow.
Vice Principal Baker, we appreciate the educators and all that they're doing in this difficult time. Honestly, we do. We understand the task is great. What are the challenges you think that we're all facing?
So one of our biggest challenges is keeping parents informed and really quelling anxiety around the return to school. Every family is different. Choices that people make are based on their own family situations. It's just really around being able to support each and every family with their individual needs and just being aware of everything that's happening. The question that came up around the second wave, what happens if the second wave hits? For education, the second wave hits.
You're closed.
You're closed. We are closed. And because we do pose a big risk if we remain open, just ensure that your teachers, to all parents, if your children are going to in-school, please ensure that they have an online classroom as well. And you need to be connected to that online classroom also because it's a way for you to remain connected with your child in the school and being kept up to date. Please ensure that the schools have your correct phone numbers and email address. I can't stress that enough. We need to be able to contact you just in case anything happens. Even if it's a sunshine call, we still want to be able to get in contact with you. So please ensure that all your teachers, your school have the correct phone number. And please answer when we call. Thank you.
Oh Lord, Sister June, your challenges, Nurse Mason challenges.
Thank you. A lot of information.
Just challenges with regards to, okay, are you asking challenges with regards to nursing or with regards to children?
Nursing. Health.
Nursing. I find the biggest challenge is misconception with regards to COVID and people coming up with a lot of things that are either not true or just kind of what they think should happen or should not happen. And I'm finding, like, even now with our nursing students, I find that's also a challenge because that's something that was taken for granted before, where the students would come in, they'd get their education, they'd get their hands-on education as well within the hospital. So we're finding that a bit of a challenge. We're only now starting to get students to come back now. And with that, that's even still a big change. We don't have the big groups we had before, very small groups. We have to do things like contact tracing. So any patient that they come near and that they deal with, any staff that they deal with, they have to write down their names, their numbers, and everything like that, because they are coming from external coming into the hospital. So the hospital is being very careful with regards to who's coming in. We have to know who you are, who you came in contact with, to be able to trace if anything should happen. So I find that's a bit of a challenge because for myself, I'm a hands-on person. And what the students are telling us is if they're not in the hospital, then they're doing online training. So online clinical, online skills. And I'm like, how on earth are you going to learn to wash somebody online? I mean, you can watch a video, fine, but you need the hands-on. At the end of the day, you actually need to be able to touch somebody to do that. So I find that to be a bit of a challenge. And I hopefully things will settle down and we'll get back to how it was before.
Yes, because I don't want my surgeon operating on me because he only learned online.
Videos just don't
No, you guys have been awesome. Unfortunately, our time is done, but thank you guys so much.
Very informative.
It was a very, very good discussion. I enjoyed sharing with you all. Sister Elever, Sister Nikki, Sister Gezel, Sister June, thank you all so much. I also thank Sister Cheyenne for coming in and doing our Facebook comments. And for everyone that was on, who shared, who commented, God bless you. Thank you so, so much. I just want to remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get your friends, your family members to subscribe to the Kingdom Life YouTube channel. Also like us on Facebook. And we are back in regular service tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for our early worship service, and at 11:30 a.m. For a second worship service. You have to have registered in order to attend any of the two services. So if you didn't register by now, then obviously you will not be in service, but you can watch us online on YouTube or Facebook, or go to our website and just watch our service directly online. God bless you tremendously. I'm going to turn back to my lovely wife to close us out and take us out in prayer.
Dear God, I want to thank you for your love, your mercies, and for your kindness, for this opportunity to share with your people near and far. Dear Lord, as we're dealing with the season that we're going through, dear Lord, we're so grateful that you've placed people in our lives and that we can learn from each other. We thank you for our nurses, our teachers, our parents, that we're able to give their views of what their experiences are during this time. We thank you for your protection and for what you've done for us. We pray, oh God, as we go, that your blessings will rest, remain, and abide upon your people, and that we will always be grateful and say thank you for your blessings in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
God bless you, everyone.